Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Middle Complex here, and today I've got another top 5 video to share with you guys. This time, my top 5 favorite Civivi knives. So, most people know by now, but Civivi being a subsidiary of We Knives, they make kind of the less expensive builds, through all of everything that We does. They have made some amazing knives, and truthfully, just about every single model that Civivi comes out with ends up being an exceptional design. Kind of the give and take with that is that they're all exceptional, but a lot of them look really, really similar. I have not handled every single Civivi knife. I've handled a lot of them. I definitely have ones that I favor over others. And I can't say, other than maybe 1 or 2 designs, that there's really one that I don't like. So if you've never heard of Civivi knives, definitely check them out. All these knives, if I've got links available, I will link them down in the description so that you can check them out for yourself. They are wonderful. If you're looking for an excellent cutting tool at a low price, you definitely should be checking out Civivi knives. If something does not make this list, it means one of 2 things. Either I have never handled it and can't say, or I've handled it and I don't like it as much. So this is just my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, there is a link down in the description. You can get your hands on some exclusive benefits. The support would absolutely mean the world to me. So anyways, these are in order, I guess. We're going to start off here with the Civivi Elementum. This is a wonderful, simple design. Something that is basically the same thing across the board with these Civivi knives is that they've got a T8 pivot and they've got usually just a couple T8 body screws. What I really like about this one, aside from the nearly perfect blade, wish there was more of a choil, but nearly perfect blade, is the overall simplicity, the overall, simple flow of the knife. I love the shadow boxing on the scales, how the liner comes out just a little bit further than the scales. It's nice. It adds a little bit of character there. In this case, I really like the gray G10. In fact, that gray and black G10 is usually what I would prefer. It's really just the overall lines. And on top of that, this one is a little bit smaller. It carries a little bit more compact. It has an excellent amount of blade length or cutting edge length for the overall size of the knife. So it's really, really easy to carry. It's just an excellent overall EDC build. A lot of people are probably wondering why this one wasn't my number 1. I tend to prefer generally larger knives. This is still what I'd consider to be a full-size knife. It's just not quite as large as the other ones, but easily something that lands in my top 5. Moving on here to number 4, this is the Civivi Backlash. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the Civivi Backlash, this is one of the first Civivis that I handled. These are using the 9CR 18 MOV steel, and people think one way or another about the 9CR 18. At this price range, it's less important to me that the steel is like the absolute best possible thing that you can get in the price range. And it's more important to me that the design is functional and easy to manipulate. This has an excellent overall ergonomic design. I like to choke up behind the blade. I like to have a comfortable place for my thumb to rest. This is a larger knife. It's a flipper, just like the last one. For anybody who doesn't know, most Civivis run on bearings. Their detent is absolutely tuned. I mean, they found that point of excellence and they have manufactured it to the point where it's on every single one of their knives. So excellent flipping action. I like it's not really contour G10, but you have those long, chamfered areas and then the flat area up top, and it just gives the entire knife a little bit more character. Carries deep. It's a lightweight knife. If I remember correctly, the liners are milled out. Civivi does some weird stuff with the colored liners, and in this case, you can see it's OD green and blue. They have different versions of each of these. So if you see one that is not really a color that you like or a color combination, they do different colored liners and scales and things like that. But this one's got a little bit more of a delicate tip, just because Civivi doesn't make they don't design knives with overly thick blade stock. So this is thin. It's a long blade. It tapers out to a really kind of needlepoint tip, but your cutting performance is once again excellent. And this one kind of emphasizes that extra ability to puncture objects. So fantastic. Moving on here, one that is very similar in the overall appearance to the Backlash. This is the Civivi Shredder. Something that makes me like it just a little bit more, despite it having D2. And I know that D2 is not all the rage anymore, right? People complain about, whether or not companies are heat treating it properly. This D2 is something that I would prefer over 9CR18 just for edge retention, assuming that it's heat treated properly. But I do enjoy that it's got a D2 blade. I also enjoy that it's got the little opening hole there. So I like to do a reverse flick. That's kind of thanks to my love for Spydercos. I got used to that. So it's everything that I love about the Backlash, except I can do the reverse flick on it a little bit more easily. It's also a little bit easier to manipulate this guy if you're wearing gloves, which, let's be honest, these knives are inexpensive and they're built well. These knives are absolutely made to be used. So if I'm going to go out and use a knife really, really hard for, a continuous period of time, I might be wearing gloves, and being able to access that little thumb hole while wearing gloves is really important to me. I also like the color combination options that they've got on these guys a little bit better. If I remember correctly, the one that I handled, I think, had black liners, and it was black G10. I think that's right, but this one has sort of a combination red and black layered G10, and it just looks a little bit better. I also like the black pocket clip on these. I know that that's just paint and it's going to wear off, but it's just a little bit more of a handsome design. I mean, functionally, both this and the Backlash are going to serve you just fine, but I just like this one a little bit more because it's got the thumb hole opener. I think I like the grind. The grind on this is just a little bit different. It absolutely is deserving of the name Shredder. This thing is wickedly thin behind the edge. I mean, even considering that it's a Civivi, they're all thin behind the edge, but this thing, man, this thing is ready to go. Moving on here to number 2. This one just didn't get as much attention as I feel like it deserves. This is the Civivi SE Terre. It's one of the more expensive Civivi knives, and I don't know why, I guess, but I'll tell you why I like this one so much. I don't care so much for the laminate carbon fiber, and that's what this is. It's a combination of carbon fiber and G10. I could have taken it or left it. I don't really care about that. I do appreciate the contrast between the carbon fiber and the different colors sometimes. So in this case, I'm not really like a coyote tan G10 kind of person, but the contrast is kind of nice. And on top of that, these have those bronze fasteners in the bronze pivot. So the contrast between carbon fiber and bronze, in my opinion, is something that makes it super attractive. What also makes me really love this knife, and probably more than anything else, is the blade. The blade has a beautiful fuller in it, and it is one of very few Civivis that are actually tumbled. God, I wish Civivi would do more. The tumbled blade on this looks excellent. I really wish that they would do more tumbled blades. The ergonomics on this thing, it's just excellent. Everything is nicely rounded. It's shaped perfectly to fit your hand. It kind of makes me think of the Jurassic from Rick Hinder knives. And it's got all those other elements. It's super thin behind the edge. This is D2 steel. It's just got a few pieces of hardware, and I mean the pivot, a couple of screws, right? Everything is placed in the right position. I love this knife, and for whatever reason, people were like, it's pretty good, and then moving on. But I truly feel like this stands out in the Civivi line. Like I said, it's a little more expensive than the other Civivi knives on this list, but I mean, if you've never checked it out, I mean, it's still a very inexpensive knife, and very, very aesthetically appealing and super functional. The number one on this knife, or the number one knife on this list, I'm sure you guys could have guessed, is the Civivi Praxis. This is not only my favorite Civivi knife, this is my favorite budget knife of all time, and truthfully one of my favorite overall knives, like my favorite overall user knives in general. This thing is designed perfectly. It is absolutely wonderful. This was the knife that I concluded was the ultimate budget knife in my quest for the perfect budget knife series. You guys have heard me talk about this. I mean, if it was up to me, there were a couple of teeny tiny little things that I would change, but they were things that I wanted that don't necessarily that aren't always things like in the budget knife world, and they don't need to occur. They're just little preferences. You can go back and watch that series if you want, but this knife to me is like if you took the Spyderco Shaman and you made it a flipper and you made it a liner lock and you made the blade stock thinner and changed the grind a little bit. That's essentially what you end up with here, because the ergonomic lines are extremely similar. The overall size and profile of the knife are extremely similar. And once again, you have that legendary thinness behind the edge. You've got, you know, limited number of hardware, limited hardware on the knife, so it's very easy to disassemble. There's so little to nitpick about this. If the thing was tumbled, if it didn't have the gold line, like the gold liners are okay, they look okay with the black G10, right? If the blade was tumbled, it didn't have the gold liners. And of course, Civivi's pocket clip works really, really well. It's just not I don't like the bills, and that's the same way with all of them, but it is a deep carry clip, and it's, you know, considering how large this knife is, this is a full-size, you know, work knife. It really does carry exceptionally well. Here's the other big problem with this knife. As of, you know, right now, this particular knife is kind of difficult to get a hold of. They do periodically come back in stock, so check my link. I'll leave a link, right? Check the link. Depending on when you're watching this, it might be available. It's also important to point out that I think almost every single one of these, if not every single one of them, comes in a Damascus, a stainless Damascus option that has performance similar to 440C, which I think is perfectly acceptable considering you get to enjoy the Damascus version of the blade and use it, right? This version of the knife comes in D2, which once again is, I think that's just fine. But yeah, these are all just super excellent. But this one in particular, the Praxis, truthfully, I have never handled a budget knife that I thought was as good, or even really, I mean, the knives that I consider in second, third, fourth, fifth place, whatever, they're great knives, but I honestly think this is head and shoulders above the other budget knives that I've handled. And I tend to stick with my choice for a really long time. It's going to take something truly special to surpass this knife for me. And honestly, my money is on Civivi to actually release the knife that I think is better than the Praxis. I mean, they're really knocking it out of the park right now in terms of simplicity and functionality. They make tools, you know, they've got the fidget factor, they've got the looks and things like that, but, you know, I think these are first and foremost tools. And I know a lot of people don't really like bearings. They do make some models that are on phosphor bronze, so you can check those out if you want to. I have one honorable mention. I struggled with not putting it on this list, and it's another one that I don't think gets the attention that it deserves, the Civivi Brienne. I really, really like this knife, and the weird thing is all Civivis are super smooth. They don't all drop shut, right? But they've got powerful flipping action, smooth. I mean, it's very easy to manipulate. This thing was the smoothest Civivi that I've ever felt. I very much love the overall aesthetic. It's got the shadow box lines, a lot like the Elementum, but I like the blade shape better. It's just big enough to where it really does feel like a full-size knife in a much more compact form. I think they make better use of the handle space, the handle shape, and the forward choil on this guy. I also really like the blade shape, which curiously enough was, I thought that people would really, really love this blade shape over some of the traditional drop points or the standard drop points that Civivi always does, but people were not as in, or at least in my comment section, people were not as in love with it. Yeah, I really, really like the Brienne. So I'm squeezing this one in here as an honorable mention, but truly another excellent design. Like I said, pretty much everything that Civivi makes seems to be just absolutely incredible, right? So if you've not checked them out, and maybe nothing on this list, you know, was your cup of tea, check out Civivi knives. Like I said, there will be links in the description for all the stuff. You guys can check them out. They're inexpensive enough that you can pick one up for yourself as a beater, or, you know, they make great gifts. If you're trying to introduce your friends, your family, or just somebody who's, you know, kind of getting into knives, if you want to introduce them to a nice knife that's not going to break the bank, Civivi is a fantastic place to start. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's top 5. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.